You begin by lying still. Your body sinks into the quiet of your room, into the softness of the present moment. Above you, beyond walls and roofs and clouds, the sky hums with something old and enormous. The stars are distant, but their story is near. You feel it not in your ears or eyes, but in your breath. Slowly, gently, you begin to listen. The universe, too, is breathing. But this breath is not made of air. It's made of distance, of space itself stretching in every direction, a silent expansion that began long before you, and continues now, all around you. You are floating inside this cosmic rhythm, a tide so vast and slow that you don't notice it day to day, and yet, it holds everything. You close your eyes. Imagine yourself suspended in space, far from any planet or star. There is no up, no down. Only darkness speckled with ancient light. Out here, the galaxies do not stay still. They drift, all of them, away from one another, like leaves gently separating on a still pond. But this motion is not caused by wind or current. It is space itself that is growing. Like dough rising in an oven, the fabric of the universe stretches. The galaxies are like raisins in that dough, not moving on their own, but being carried apart as the whole expands. And it has always been this way. Long ago, before there were stars or galaxies or even atoms, everything we know was packed into a tiny, hot, dense place. There was no outside, no before. Just a single, glowing instant, the beginning of time and space. Then, without sound or flash, space began to stretch. Not into anything, but of itself. A quiet unfolding. That was the first breath. Not a breath with lungs or lips, but one of becoming, a soft exhale that carried the future on its back. Time flowed outward. Space grew. And the glow began to cool. Billions of years later, you are here. And the universe is still breathing. You don't feel it. Not directly. Because the expansion of space is too gentle to pull you apart. Atoms cling tightly. Earth holds you with its gravity. Your body, your room, your world, all remain bound. But beyond these small grips, farther out where galaxies float free, the stretch continues. And something even more surprising has happened. The universe is not just expanding, it is expanding faster. Like a sigh that grows longer and deeper with each breath, the space between galaxies is growing more quickly now than it did in the past. Scientists once thought gravity would slow the expansion, that over time, everything would drift, then pause, then collapse back inward. But it isn't happening that way. Instead, galaxies are fleeing from each other at ever-increasing speeds. It's as if something is pushing them apart, something you can't see or touch, something not made of matter or light. You'll meet that something soon. But for now, you focus on the breath. You imagine holding a rubber sheet in your hands, and placing marbles on it to represent galaxies. If you stretch the sheet evenly, the marbles move away from each other. The more you stretch, the farther they get. But if the sheet begins to stretch faster, the marbles drift apart more quickly. That's how the universe behaves, a quiet fabric in motion, tugging gently outward. And light carries the proof. As galaxies recede, the light they send us changes. It shifts toward red, longer wavelengths, stretched by expanding space. This is called redshift. It's not just a color. It's a message, the universe is growing. You don't need to understand all the math. Just listen. Each wave of light from a distant star arrives slightly more stretched than the last. The farther it traveled, the more space grew in its path. The light becomes dimmer, older, softer, like a voice calling from across a great canyon, its echo fading, but still clear. This light, these echoes, they let you measure the breadth of space. And what they reveal is humbling. There is no center to the universe. No special place where the expansion begins. Everything moves away from everything else. From any point in space, it looks the same, the stars fleeing, the darkness widening. It means you are not at the center of everything. But neither is anyone else. We are all centered in our own way, carried by the same breath, woven into the same stretch. Wherever you are, the universe expands around you. That thought doesn't isolate you. It connects you. Because even as galaxies move apart, they began together. The atoms in your hand were once pressed close to atoms that now belong to distant stars. In the beginning, everything was close. Time has simply given it room to grow. You are made of that closeness. And shaped by that distance. You picture the early universe as a dense, glowing fog, a sea of particles waiting to cool. As it expanded, it gave space for complexity to arise. Hydrogen formed. Then stars ignited. Then galaxies spun. And here, on one small blue world, life began to wonder. Now, you wonder too. Why is the expansion speeding up? What drives the breath beyond gravity's reach? These are questions scientists ask, even in their sleep, turning them gently in the mind like smooth stones. Something unseen seems to be acting on the universe. A kind of pressure, but not from within. A pull that is not really a pull. A push that comes from the quietest place of all. Dark energy. You don't need to know its full nature yet. Only that it waits for you in the next chapter. For now, you rest in the breath. You feel the soft stretch of space around you. And within that stillness, something begins to stir. Not noise. Not movement. But a presence. Between the stars. Beneath the light. Beyond the gravity. Something that doesn't shine. Doesn't weigh. And yet moves everything. A forgotten force. A quiet one. You feel it. And gently, without fear, you begin to follow. You begin again with stillness. But this time, your eyes are open. Not to the room around you, but to the deep spaces between the stars. Your thoughts, like soft currents, drift outward, past planets and moons, through the gentle wash of starlight, and into the dark ocean that stretches between galaxies. There is so much space here. Not empty space, but quiet space. Space that breathes. Space that moves. You float among it now, not with fear, but with a sense of returning. The void is not cold or hostile. It is vast, yes, but welcoming in its silence, in its order, in its patience. Light from distant galaxies passes through it, taking billions of years to reach you, whispering as it travels, we are still moving away. But why? In a universe born from a single spark, expanding outward for billions of years, you would expect gravity, that steady hand, to pull things gently back. To slow the expansion. To gather stars like leaves on the tide, drifting together toward some distant balance. But it isn't so. Instead, the galaxies accelerate. As if pushed. As if urged by something more subtle than matter, more persistent than light. Something you can't see. Something that does not weigh or shine. You try to picture it, and the mind offers nothing. Dark energy. A name for a mystery. A placeholder for the force that fills the gaps between galaxies, that tugs not on atoms but on existence itself. You may never see it. You may never touch it. But tonight, you can feel it in the space between thoughts, in that gentle urge toward separation that exists without hostility. Scientists discovered it not through detection, but through absence. They looked at the sky, expecting a slowing universe. Expecting galaxies to retreat less over time. But what they found was more retreat, not less. The universe, it seemed, had changed its pace. It was drifting apart faster than it once did. And the only explanation that fit was a kind of energy built into space itself. Not matter. Not light. Not gravity. But something that expands space. It isn't like the energy that makes your heart beat or your muscles move. It's not even like the warmth of a star or the blaze of a supernova. This energy is quieter. It doesn't burn. It doesn't swirl. It simply is. It exists in every corner of the cosmos, evenly, calmly, not gathering into clumps, not forming planets or people, but stretching the fabric of space wherever space exists. And because there's more space with each moment, there's more dark energy, too. It grows as space grows. Not by multiplying itself, but by being part of what space is. You lie there, absorbing this. You are not floating through space. Space is expanding through you. The same force that urges galaxies apart also passes through your skin, your bones, your breath, too faint to notice, but constant, like the hum beneath silence. And this force, this dark energy, is old. Perhaps as old as the universe itself. But it only began to dominate recently, in cosmic time. For billions of years, gravity held sway. It pulled stars into galaxies, galaxies into clusters, and clusters into the webbed architecture of the cosmos. But as the universe expanded, matter grew thinner. Galaxies drifted farther apart. Gravity grew weaker between them. And in that growing emptiness, dark energy became stronger, not because it changed, but because everything else faded. Now, it rules the future. You imagine two dancers on an infinite floor, gravity and dark energy. One draws close, the other pushes away. For a long time, gravity led. But now, dark energy steps forward. The music hasn't changed, but the rhythm of the dance has. Still, no one truly knows what dark energy is. It may be a property of space, a natural part of the vacuum, woven into the structure of existence. Or it may be something else entirely, a new field, a new force, something not yet understood. But its effect is clear. Galaxies recede. The universe stretches. The breath continues, faster, deeper. And you? You feel a strange calm in knowing this. A kind of peace that comes not from answers, but from living inside the question. Because there is beauty in the unknown. You drift now, between galaxies. You pass through clusters of stars, their lights growing faint as the space between them widens. You see superclusters, great rivers of galaxies, and between them, voids larger than imagination. And even these, you realize, are moving apart. Not through explosion. Not through force. But through space itself growing larger. And this growth is smooth. Uniform. Gentle. It doesn't roar like thunder or crash like waves. It expands like thought. Like wonder. Like love. You rest in that. And as you do, you remember that most of the universe is made of things we cannot see. Not just dark energy, but dark matter, too, something else hidden, something else waiting. But that is a different kind of mystery. Tonight, you remain with the quiet force between galaxies. The one that doesn't clump or collide. The one that doesn't push like wind, or pull like gravity. It expands. Constantly. Silently. You picture the universe one day, far into the future. The galaxies so distant from each other that their light no longer reaches across the gulf. A sky grown darker. A cosmos quieter still. A solitude not of sadness, but of scale. And yet, the force will remain, spreading space itself, even when stars grow dim. It humbles you. Because you, too, contain mystery. You, too, hold energies that science has yet to name. The way your mind drifts. The way your heart wonders. The way your breath mirrors the breath of space. Dark energy cannot be seen. But it can be sensed, in questions, in stillness, in the movement between stars. And now, you carry that whisper with you. You feel it, not just between galaxies, but within your own quiet spaces. And as the universe expands, so does your curiosity. Next, you'll meet the thinker who first tried to balance the cosmos. A man whose equations made space stand still, until the breath proved stronger. You find yourself in a quiet room of thought. The universe has stepped back for a moment, giving you time to pause, to reflect not on stars or galaxies, but on minds. One mind, in particular. It sits beside you like a warm memory, ageless, unrushed. You feel it there, a hum of gentle thought, a flicker of equations in candlelight. It is the mind of Albert Einstein. He doesn't speak. Not yet. But you sense his presence, curious, cautious, brilliant. You are not here to idolize him. You are here to sit beside him, as two wanderers facing the same impossible sky. You look through his eyes, back in time, over 100 years ago. Back when the cosmos was still thought to be static, eternal, and still. Back when no one imagined the universe might be moving. At that time, Einstein had built something beautiful. A set of equations that described how space and time bend and stretch under the influence of mass and energy. It was elegant, revolutionary, complete in form. His general theory of relativity had captured gravity not as a force, but as a curve, a slope in the shape of reality. But it carried with it a whisper that space might not stand still. That space, left to its own devices, might stretch or collapse. And Einstein hesitated. Because no one, then, imagined a universe that changed. The stars seemed fixed. The heavens, eternal. So Einstein, with care and reluctance, added something new to his equations, a term to hold the universe in balance. He called it the cosmological constant. A soft pressure embedded in space itself, a quiet counterweight to gravity's inward pull. It was not based on observation. It was based on desire, a yearning to preserve stillness in a theory that hinted otherwise. You picture him hunched over his papers, weaving numbers into silence. The cosmological constant wasn't loud. It was subtle, mathematical. It didn't shine. It didn't roar. But it served a purpose, it stopped the universe from moving. Or so it seemed. Years later, when Edwin Hubble peered deep into the night and found galaxies drifting away, when he measured their light and saw it stretched and red, the truth became inescapable: the universe was expanding. Einstein, faced with this revelation, removed the constant from his equations. He called it his biggest blunder. But now, sitting beside his ghost, you wonder if that judgment came too soon. Because decades later, astronomers discovered something stranger still. Not only was the universe expanding, it was expanding faster than expected. As if some invisible presence were pushing outward. Suddenly, Einstein's discarded idea found new life. The cosmological constant returned, not as a mistake, but as a possible explanation for the mysterious force we now call dark energy. It was as if Einstein had guessed the answer to a question no one had asked yet. You think of the constant not as a number, but as a feeling, the soft urge within space to become more. A gentle expansion built into the architecture of everything. Einstein couldn't have known what we know now. He saw the universe as a still canvas, not a painting in motion. But his mathematics contained more than even he understood. Within the quiet curve of his equations was a breath, the breath you now follow through this journey. The cosmological constant is small, so small that for much of history, it seemed negligible. But across billions of light years, even a whisper becomes a roar. You imagine space as a calm pond. Gravity is a ripple moving inward, gathering things together. The cosmological constant is the ripple moving outward, ever so slightly. Over time, the outward ripple grows. And the pond becomes wider. And the galaxies become islands. And light takes longer to cross the gap. Einstein didn't know about dark energy. But he knew that space could not be empty in the way we once imagined. Even in the absence of matter, space is not truly nothing. It is something, something capable of carrying energy, of stretching, of shaping time. The cosmological constant is our simplest guess at what dark energy might be, an unchanging pressure, evenly spread, embedded in the vacuum of space. It fits the math. It fits the data. But is it the truth? You let the question linger. The answer is not needed now. Only the wonder. Because perhaps the constant is not constant. Perhaps it changes with time. Perhaps dark energy is not a number, but a field, something more alive, more shifting, more strange. Something that hums beneath the surface of space like wind across water. Still, for now, the cosmological constant is our lantern. It lights the way through the darkness between galaxies. It helps explain the acceleration. It offers a framework, fragile, perhaps, but useful. You smile gently at Einstein's ghost. Even his blunder has become a bridge. It reminds you that science is not about certainty. It's about humility, about leaving room for the universe to surprise us. You feel that surprise now, resting in your chest. You let it breathe with you. What once was added to preserve stillness now explains motion. What once was removed now returns, not as mistake, but as mystery. The constant may be a clue, a crack in the surface of reality that lets in light. And you, floating in this expanding universe, feel the pull and the push. You are not outside the equation. You are part of it. The constant lives in the space between your thoughts. In the gap between stars. In the numbers and in the night. It may be that the universe is not just growing, but being drawn outward by a force that lies hidden in its very shape. And if so, what else might shape that future? Who else might light the way? Next, you'll walk with a quiet astronomer who watched flickering stars. And measured how fast the universe really moves. You walk slowly now, one step at a time, along a trail woven not of stone or soil, but of starlight. Each light flickers softly at your feet, glowing with stories that began long ago. They are distant suns, ancient galaxies, and quiet beacons scattered across the fabric of the sky, and as you walk, you feel time stretch out behind them. Ahead, a figure appears. Not a guide, not a ghost, but a presence, thoughtful, observant. His steps are measured, his pace unhurried. He carries no telescope in his hands, but he sees farther than most. This is Edwin Hubble. You walk beside him in silence. You do not need to speak. The stars do it for you. Together, you reach a gentle hill. Below, the universe unfolds, not as a flat image, but as a living depth, a wide sky scattered with light that is both old and traveling. You sit beside him. You listen. Long ago, when telescopes first peered deep into the heavens, the question was simple: were those faint smudges in the sky part of our own galaxy, or something more? Edwin Hubble answered not with a guess, but with patience. He studied those distant smudges, measuring the light of special stars within them, stars that flickered in a rhythmic pattern. Cepheid variables. They pulsed like breathing hearts, their brightness rising and falling in a predictable rhythm. And Hubble, by measuring that rhythm, could determine how far away they were. They were farther than anyone had imagined. These smudges were not clouds in our Milky Way, they were entire galaxies, filled with billions of stars, each a separate island in the great sea of space. The universe had suddenly grown. You breathe deeply, feeling that expansion not as motion, but as awareness. The sense of standing in a room that quietly becomes a cathedral, vast and sacred. But that was only the beginning. Hubble continued to watch. He noticed something strange about the galaxies: their light was not just dimmer with distance, it was redder. Not because the stars were red, but because the light itself was stretched. You imagine it now, light, once pure and clear, drawn out across space like thread pulled gently between your fingers. The longer it travels, the more it stretches. This shift in light toward the red end of the spectrum is called redshift. It was the key. The redder the galaxy's light, the faster it was moving away. Hubble plotted this, distance versus velocity, and a pattern emerged: the farther a galaxy, the faster it receded. The sky, it turned out, was not still. It was flying apart. Space wasn't just big, it was expanding. You pause to let that settle. The light you see in the night sky is not only old, it is evidence. Each wave, each hue, carries the fingerprint of motion. The universe is not simply in time. It has a tempo. And this tempo increases with distance. You imagine the galaxies as dots on a balloon. As the balloon inflates, the dots move apart. The farther apart they are, the faster that space stretches between them. It's not that the galaxies themselves are flying through space like birds in wind. It's that space itself is growing. And you are part of this expansion. Though you feel solid, anchored to the ground, you too are carried by this silent swelling of everything. It doesn't pull at your skin. It doesn't stretch your home. Because atoms, planets, solar systems, they are tightly bound. Gravity holds them close. But beyond those bindings, in the grand distance between galaxies, the fabric stretches freely. You walk along the path of starlight again, following Hubble's candle, a term astronomers use for the kinds of stars and objects that help measure distance. Standard candles, they're called. They shine with a known brightness, and by comparing that known light to what we receive, we can measure how far away they are. It's like hearing a familiar song from down the street: the quieter it sounds, the farther away it must be. These candles help map the cosmos. They mark how fast it grows. They show us where we are, not in the center, but part of the whole. You are not lost in this expansion. You are woven into it. You think of light differently now. Not just as brightness, but as a messenger. A traveler. A timeline. Each star you see is not just a point in space, but a point in time. The farther you look, the further back you gaze. The universe is not only expanding in distance, but in memory. And that memory has a direction. It tells us that the universe is not just drifting outward, but accelerating. The distances between galaxies are increasing faster and faster, as though some hidden hand urges them along. It isn't speed as we know it. It is expansion of the very grid that defines space. You trace that thought backward now, back to Hubble, to his notebook, to the moment he realized that the universe was not standing still. That it was, in fact, growing. And from that realization, all others flowed. Because if the universe is growing now, it must have been smaller in the past. And smaller still. Until everything, time, matter, energy, space, was once compressed into something almost too small to imagine. The Big Bang was not a bang in the air. It was the beginning of air. Of time. Of space itself. You let that image hold you. Not as a bang, but as a breath. A whisper that grew into wind, then into galaxies, and now into you. You stand quietly beside Hubble, watching the sky he once revealed. It no longer looks static. It shimmers with movement, not the twitch of stars, but the widening of the canvas they rest upon. The candle he lit still glows. Not in fire, but in understanding. His redshift became a roadmap. His stars, measuring sticks. His work, a doorway. And now that doorway opens wider. Because something is making the expansion accelerate. Something is pushing harder than gravity can hold. And while light reveals the motion, it does not yet reveal the cause. That mystery, that gentle, invisible push, is the force you now follow. You step forward into the widening sky. And in the hush of that widening, you begin to sense something else. Not a pull, not a flame, but a pressure that pushes softly, everywhere. You begin in stillness again, not standing, not floating, but resting on the edge of something vast and unknowable. It is not a cliff. It is not a border. It is the edge of understanding. Before you, the universe continues, full of stars and distance, galaxies drifting quietly through the dark. Behind you, a long trail of thoughts, light stretching, space expanding, time opening like the petals of a slow, eternal flower. And now, beneath you, something stirs. It is not wind. Not gravity. Not heat or cold. It is pressure. But not the kind you feel on your skin. This pressure moves differently. It does not press inward or downward. It presses out, outward, everywhere, all at once. It is the pressure of dark energy. You let your thoughts lie gently on it, like feathers floating on invisible air. It carries you, not with force, but with subtle insistence. There is no jolt, no sound. Just a sensation, of being drawn apart by something soft and steady. It feels like falling up. You have always known gravity. The pull that keeps your feet to the ground. The weight you feel when you wake, when you walk, when you hold something in your hand. Gravity is familiar, intimate. It binds stars, forms planets, sculpts galaxies. But dark energy is its opposite. It doesn't pull. It pushes. Not with violence, but with persistence. Imagine two objects floating in space. If only gravity existed, they would drift toward each other, like old friends drawn together across silence. But in the presence of dark energy, they are gently nudged apart, not by their own motion, but by space growing between them. It's as though the very fabric of reality is under tension. And that tension releases, slowly, steadily, like a breath long held and finally let go. You wonder, how can pressure push outward? You picture the vacuum of space, often described as empty. But emptiness is not the absence of everything. It is a stage. And that stage, quiet though it seems, is filled with potential, with properties, with energy. Vacuum energy. Even in the most remote, starless regions of space, far from galaxies, far from atoms, something remains. Not particles. Not fields. But a kind of restless stillness. A hum. A presence. That hum, soft and invisible, may be what we call dark energy. It behaves strangely. Unlike matter, which dilutes as it spreads, dark energy remains. It doesn't weaken with distance. It doesn't thin out as space expands. It stays the same, no matter how large the universe becomes. And because there's more space every moment, there is more dark energy, not because it's growing, but because the stage it fills is. This leads to something delicate and beautiful. Dark energy exerts a negative pressure. You feel the phrase pass through your mind like a cool breeze. Negative pressure. It sounds like poetry, but it's real. In physics, pressure isn't just force on a surface. It's a kind of energy that acts in all directions. And in the case of dark energy, that pressure is negative, meaning it acts not to compress, but to expand. It is as if space itself is under gentle strain. And when it stretches, it does not resist. It leans into the stretch. You imagine a rubber sheet, not being pressed down, but pulled gently from every side. The more you pull, the more it yields. It does not tear. It simply grows. This is the nature of dark energy. It pulls by pushing. It accelerates the expansion of space not by adding motion, but by shaping the very arena in which motion happens. You drift farther now, past clusters of galaxies, into the wide voids, vast cosmic deserts where almost nothing resides. These voids are not failures of creation. They are the consequence of growth. Galaxies cluster together in long filaments, great tendrils of stars bound by gravity. But between these threads are spaces where dark energy is unopposed, where its quiet pressure expands without restraint. And in those voids, you feel the purest version of the pressure that pulls. There's no resistance here. only room. You are floating now, softly pulled outward in every direction, like the center of a sphere growing from within. It is not frightening. It is freeing. You let go of needing to know what dark energy is made of. You stop trying to name it. It has no voice. It has no color. It cannot be bottled, or burned, or caught. But it shapes everything. Its fingerprints are on every galaxy's path, on every pulse of redshift, on every future we try to imagine. Even now, it is shaping your thoughts. Because to feel pressure where there is no hand, to drift upward without falling, to stretch without tearing. It means the rules you knew are not broken, just deeper than expected. You begin to see the universe not as a space of objects, but as a space of relationships. Matter relates by clustering. Gravity relates by pulling. And dark energy? It relates by setting things free. It is the whisper behind separation. You wonder, is this the end of gathering? Will galaxies drift so far apart that even light cannot cross the gap? Will each island of stars fade into loneliness? Perhaps. And yet, even in that scenario, even as the expansion grows, even as stars cool and fade, there is something peaceful in the idea. Not everything ends in collapse. Some things end by becoming more. More distance. More silence. More possibility. You sit on the edge of that thought, breathing slowly. The pressure of dark energy is everywhere, not as threat, but as inevitability. It is not here to destroy. It is here to shape what comes next. And even as the universe grows larger and colder, it grows more spacious. More open. More dreamlike. You think of your own life. Of moments when pressure pushed you, not inward, but outward. When change came not as a storm, but as a gentle unraveling. That, too, was a kind of dark energy. A growth you didn't control, but that shaped you. So you don't resist it now. You let the expansion carry you. You feel it in the breath between heartbeats. In the space between thoughts. In the tension between stars. The pressure that pulls is not chaos. It is a new kind of order. A soft hand guiding galaxies apart. A presence that doesn't hold you close, but lets you drift, and trusts that you will still find your way. And as you float in this gentle pull, you begin to sense something deeper still. Not just motion, not just pressure, but structure. A secret web that binds the cosmos, even as it grows apart. You float now, not through space, but just above it, as if lying atop a vast, invisible ocean. Below you stretches the entire universe, wide, ancient, and softly glowing. But this is no scattered chaos. There is shape here. Pattern. A quiet architecture that holds the stars in place like beads strung on invisible thread. You see galaxies, countless and shining, not evenly spread, but gathered into long tendrils, delicate bridges of light. Between them are voids, vast dark hollows where almost nothing resides. This isn't randomness. This is a web. A cosmic web, fine and immense, stretching across billions of light-years, its strands woven from a force you cannot see. You drift slowly above it, letting your eyes trace the patterns. Galaxies cluster at the nodes, like dew on spider silk. The threads themselves, nearly empty to the eye, carry the weight of unseen matter. It is not starlight that shapes the universe, but shadow. You are looking at a map built not from what glows, but from what doesn't. This is the realm of dark matter. It does not shine. It does not burn. But it holds galaxies together. It gives the universe its skeleton, the scaffolding upon which stars are hung. And though it is invisible, it leaves footprints. You follow them now. You watch a spiral galaxy, slowly rotating in the stillness of space. Its stars circle the center like dancers around a fire. And yet, something feels wrong. The stars at the outer edges move too quickly, faster than expected, as if held by a gravity greater than visible matter allows. There is no extra light. No extra mass you can see. But the stars move as if something unseen holds them close. That something is dark matter. It is not a single particle. Not a cloud. Not dust. It passes through you without notice, without touch. But it is there, pressing its shape into space like a hand into cloth. Scientists learn to map it not by observing it directly, but by watching how it bends light. You picture distant galaxies behind a cluster of dark matter. As their light travels toward you, it curves, not because it chooses to, but because space itself is warped. Gravitational lensing, it's called. You've seen it before, perhaps unknowingly, a distant galaxy stretched into arcs or rings by the hidden mass in front of it. This bending becomes a map. A map of shadows. A way to sketch the invisible. And when the maps are made, something beautiful appears, a filamentary structure, stretching across the cosmos. The web. Dark matter forms the bones of this great structure. It clumps, it flows, it holds. It is what allows galaxies to form at all. Without it, the early universe would have expanded too fast for anything to gather. There would be no stars, no planets, no life. No you. You feel the truth of that, the quiet gratitude for a force that never asks to be seen. And still, you wonder, how can something so abundant remain so hidden? Dark matter doesn't interact with light. That's why it's dark. It doesn't emit, absorb, or reflect. It reveals itself only through gravity, the way it shapes motion and curves space. There are theories, yes. Particles with strange names. Hypothetical forms of matter that lie beyond what we've touched. But no one knows for sure. You imagine it now, this unseen presence, not as menace, but as mystery. A silent partner to everything that shines. And yet, even as dark matter holds the web together, something else is trying to pull it apart. You remember the pressure you felt earlier, the outward push of dark energy. It does not shape. It unravels. It smooths what dark matter clumps. It stretches what gravity tries to bind. Dark matter pulls things close. Dark energy urges them away. You feel their tension now, like a breath held between two forces, one gathering, one dispersing. And the universe rests between them. This balance is delicate. In the early cosmos, dark matter led. It shaped the first filaments. It gathered the first galaxies. But as space grew, dark energy gained ground. Now, it shapes the future. You look down at the web again. You see it changing, very slowly, stretched thinner, its connections weakening, like frost melting on a windowpane. In billions of years, perhaps galaxies will no longer fall into new clusters. Perhaps the web will grow quiet. Perhaps the universe will coast on expansion alone, its structure fossilized in starlight. But for now, you float above it. And you marvel at how we know any of this. After all, we cannot see dark matter. We cannot feel dark energy. But we can measure what bends. What curves. What drifts. We can track the orbits of stars, the arcs of light, the shape of the void. We can listen to the sky with telescopes, like fingers pressed to the pulse of the cosmos. And in doing so, we map the unseen. You are part of that map. Your atoms once drifted through this web, carried on the flow of gravity, shaped by forces you can only now begin to feel. You, too, are a shadow of matter. A trace left by ancient balance. And as you rest in that thought, the silence deepens. You sense the next layer of the mystery, not the threads themselves, but how they formed. Why they stretched into these patterns. What laws, what codes, what ancient math first wove the filaments you now follow. A structure deeper than shadow. A rhythm beneath the shape. Not what holds the galaxies together. but how they came to know where to be. Oh, you begin with a simple shape. A triangle. 3 points, 3 lines, a form as old as thought. You trace it with your fingertip across a blank sky, letting the stars guide your hand. But something strange happens. The lines don't quite meet the way they do on paper. The angles feel wrong. The triangle breathes. You are not on a sheet of flatness anymore. You are floating through a geometry that bends. Here, in the silence between galaxies, space itself has a shape, one you cannot always see, but that everything obeys. It's not the shape of objects, but of emptiness. Not mass, but measure. You close your eyes and feel it. A straight line, stretched too far, may curve. Not because it wants to, but because space tells it to. And the universe, large and old and restless, curves in ways your senses don't expect. You think of Earth, once believed to be flat. But sailors followed the horizon, and their ships vanished not into the edge, but into the curve. Now, you stand before a larger curve, one that holds galaxies instead of oceans, and time instead of tides. Cosmic geometry. You float above a triangle drawn in starlight. Not on a plane, but across the fabric of space. You measure its angles. They add to more than 180 degrees. Something ancient clicks into place. This is no mistake. It is the fingerprint of a universe with depth. There are 3 possibilities. A flat universe, like an infinite sheet of paper. A closed universe, like a sphere. An open universe, like a saddle, ever stretching. Each possibility tells a different story, each one bends triangles differently. And here's the secret: by measuring the geometry of space, scientists can glimpse its fate. You pause on that thought. Geometry, once the realm of simple drawings and dusty chalkboards, now becomes prophecy. You drift now through ancient light, the oldest in the universe. The cosmic microwave background. A thin, faint echo of the Big Bang, spread like mist across the sky. It is not just noise. It carries structure, and in that structure, scientists find clues. They examine tiny fluctuations, cool spots, warm spots, patterns etched by the first breath of creation. These patterns bend slightly as they move through space. And how they bend reveals space's shape. From this, they learn, the universe is flat. Not perfectly, but close. So close that over vast distances, triangles behave almost as expected. Light travels in mostly straight lines. Parallel paths remain parallel. And yet, even in this near flatness, dark energy whispers. Because flatness, in this context, isn't simple. It is balance. You imagine the early universe as a tightrope walker. Too much mass, and it would curve inward, collapse. Too little, and it would open endlessly. But it balanced on the edge, not by accident, but with uncanny precision. And that precision requires something extra. Dark energy. Without it, the geometry would collapse inward, the universe would not just slow its expansion, but reverse it. But with dark energy, the tightrope walker steps forward, not wobbling, not falling, but moving with steady rhythm, across space stretched just right. You think about that balance. How remarkable it is that space, for all its vastness, is measured with such care. Like cloth cut for a garment that fits across billions of light years. And you wonder, who took the measurements? Not a designer, perhaps. But a principle. A law deeper than law. A symmetry beneath chaos. You trace another triangle, this time across the path of a supernova, a galaxy, and a background star. The light bends, faintly. And you realize, it isn't the matter doing all the shaping. It is the space between. You recall that dark energy does not clump. It does not gather, but it fills. And in filling space, it shapes the geometry. Imagine blowing air into a balloon. Not only does the balloon get larger, its surface flattens from your perspective. Its curvature changes. Now imagine blowing space into the universe. That's what dark energy does. It flattens space by filling it. It stretches every triangle, every angle, every silent distance. And as it does, it writes the future. In a flat universe with dark energy, expansion never stops. Galaxies drift apart. Light travels longer. Time moves without a final curve. This is not a collapse, not a crunch, not an explosion. But an unfolding. You sit quietly with that, you picture the universe like a paper crane, slowly opening its wings. And in those wings, every shape obeys a rule. A quiet equation. A geometry of nothing. But nothing is never empty. It is possibility. It is form. It is where dark energy draws its lines. You open your hand, and imagine holding the curve of space itself, soft, slow, and real. The geometry continues, and with each degree, each angle, each arc that stretches gently across nothingness, you begin to wonder. If space can curve, can time, and if so, where might it lead? You begin in stillness. Eyes closed. Mind open. Listening not with ears, but with imagination. And in that silence, you hear a hum. Faint. Uniform. Ancient. It is the oldest light in the universe, the cosmic microwave background. A soft, even glow that surrounds you, everywhere, like the echo of a lullaby whispered 13.8 billion years ago. You breathe with it. Slowly. Deeply. As if your own rhythm is sinking to the earliest moments of time. This light is not bright. Not sharp. But it is steady. It holds the temperature of the infant universe, not hot anymore, but warm in memory. Just 2.7 degrees above absolute zero. Cold, but not gone. And in that cold, something lives. Not a flame. Not a voice. But ripples. Tiny variations. Like waves in still water. Like the breath of the cosmos as it settled into shape. You see them now. On an invisible sphere surrounding you. Splotches of faint blue. Wisps of subtle red. Fluctuations in temperature. Some ever so slightly warmer, others barely cooler. They are not random. They are clues. Each patch of variation is a fingerprint. A whisper of what the universe once held. Scientists study this light with care, mapping its patterns like astronomers once mapped the stars. They call it anisotropy, the small differences in the cosmic microwave background that show us where structure would grow. From these fluctuations came galaxies. From these ripples came stars. From this near-uniform glow, all difference arose. And so, as you float gently through this early sky, you trace the origin of everything. But you look closer. And what you see now is not just temperature. Not just matter. But imbalance. Some regions resisted collapse. Some expanded faster. Some pulled. Some stretched. And somewhere in these ancient patches, a new force was waiting to emerge. Dark energy. Not yet dominant. But present. You feel its tension in the coolness of the void. At this early stage, gravity still ruled. It pulled matter into clumps. It gathered the seeds of galaxies. But dark energy would not stay quiet forever. It would wait. Wait for the universe to grow. Because its influence depends not on matter, but on space itself. And as space expanded, dark energy began to stir. You picture this early sky again. The light from the cosmic microwave background rippling outward like a pond. But over time, those ripples stretched. Not because they lost energy, but because the space they traveled through changed. And dark energy shaped that change. You hover near one ripple now, a soft patch in the microwave glow. It looks harmless. But this ripple holds the future. Because the way it spread, the shape it took, the energy it carried, all of it was subtly altered by a pressure that had not yet fully risen. Dark energy doesn't announce itself loudly. It doesn't crash or roar. It alters the trajectory of expansion. It shifts the timing of structure. It leaves faint fingerprints on the oldest light. And that is how scientists find it. Not directly, never directly. But in the patterns that would be impossible without it. Like echoes that bounce too far, or shadows that fall too wide. Dark energy stretches the ripples. It alters their balance. It makes the oldest light, often just the right way. You run your hand across the background now, not touching light, but touching memory. You feel how delicate it is. If the universe had expanded a little slower, the ripples would be tighter. Galaxies would form sooner. Stars would burn differently. If it had expanded a little faster, those ripples would thin and vanish. There would be no time for matter to gather. No space for stars to ignite. But somehow, it balanced, just long enough for gravity to shape, and just fast enough for dark energy to rise. The transition is subtle. You can barely feel it. But it's there. At a certain scale, the expansion begins to shift. Acceleration starts. And the evidence lives not in today's sky, but in the stretched shapes of those primordial ripples. Scientists have traced it. Measured it. Seen its imprint on the background light. And they know, something pushed. Something gently reshaped the harmony of the early universe. That push, that quiet rise of dark energy, is like a long exhale that has never ended. You drift now above the entire sky, a full, silent dome of ancient microwaves. The patterns are beautiful. Not chaotic, but calm. Not perfect, but meaningful. And somewhere in their balance, you find peace. You see that even from the beginning, the seeds of motion were laid. Not just toward gathering, but toward letting go. Toward growing beyond gravity. Toward expansion that does not slow. You breathe in deeply, and imagine your body floating inside this early echo, wrapped in the light of everything that was. And you ask, gently. If the first light holds the traces of dark energy, what other traces might still exist? Not in the sky. But in you? You sit with the question now. Not a question of how, but of where. Where does the universe go, when expansion never ends? You breathe in slowly, your thoughts soft like mist. You drift far above galaxies now, beyond the tug of stars, beyond even the structure of the cosmic web. There is only space, stretching, sighing, endless. This is not a fall. It is a gentle drift. The kind that doesn't stop. The kind that begins slowly, and then becomes the background of everything. This is the fate of the infinite. You look around, and space feels emptier than before. Not because it lacks beauty, but because the distances have grown. Galaxies move away from each other. Not through space, but with space. The fabric itself stretches, like taffy pulled between fingers of time. The farther away something is, the faster it recedes. Not because it's rushing, but because the road between you grows longer with every passing second. You remember light. How it travels, carrying the past to the present. But now, some galaxies have crossed a threshold. They recede faster than light can catch them. Their messages, their stories, their glow, they will never reach us. They have slipped beyond the cosmic horizon. And still, you float, gently, through an ocean that grows more spacious by the moment. You wonder, will everything fade? Will all warmth vanish? Will the night grow so large that even memory has no place to land? This future has a name, the heat death. Not death by fire. But death by equilibrium. A final stillness. A temperature so low, so even, that no energy moves. No stars burn. No atoms fuse. No thoughts flicker. Not because they were taken, but because time itself has run out of contrast. You picture a fire dying. First, it flickers. Then it glows. Then it smolders. Then it becomes ash. Not gone. But done. The universe will not collapse in on itself. Not in this story. It will stretch and stretch until it is threadbare, too cold to shine, too wide to hold. Yet strangely, this does not frighten you. Because the silence it offers is not cruel. It is complete. You look back through time. You see the stars that once were. You feel the warmth that once hummed across galaxies. And you see them drifting now, not toward each other, but away. Gravity once gathered them. But dark energy changed the rhythm. The expansion will win. The galaxies will fade. The starlight will vanish. And yet, you wonder. What remains when the dance ends? Particles still drift. Black holes still whisper. Quantum fields still hum. Even in stillness, something remains. You imagine a time so distant that your mind cannot grasp it. A time when black holes evaporate. A time when protons decay. A time when even matter is a fading thought. This is not fantasy. It is physics, stretched across unimaginable spans. And yet, you ask again. What remains? Not light. Not structure. But perhaps, potential. Because even in nothing, there is a flicker. A restlessness. A quantum breath. In this coldest silence, the vacuum is not truly empty. It fluctuates. Tiny, unpredictable shifts. Bursts that bloom and vanish. And you begin to see. Perhaps the end is not the end. Perhaps the fabric of space, once cooled and stretched beyond stars, still holds the seeds of something new. A fluctuation. A birth. A new beginning. You float at the edge of this thought. You wonder if our universe is one chapter, not the whole book. Maybe others came before. Maybe others will come after. Maybe from the quietest moment. A new spark may rise. Science doesn't promise this. But it leaves the door open. And so, you rest here. At the edge of time. Wrapped not in fear, but in curiosity. Not asking how it ends. But how it might begin again. You feel the universe slowing. Stretching. Thinning. But never breaking. And somewhere, deep within the vast silence, a question stirs. If motion can fade, can it also return? You begin where you are. Not in the stars. Not in the past. Not in the distant fate of galaxies. But here. In your breath. In your body. In the quiet pulse behind your ribs. You are floating now, not through the cosmos, but through your own awareness. You feel the softness of your weight, the rhythm of your chest rising and falling. This, too, is movement. This, too, is a kind of expansion. Because you are not separate from the universe. You are made of it. You are not beneath the stars. You are part of them. The same atoms that shimmered in ancient light, they live in your lungs. In your blood. In your bones. Carbon from long-dead stars. Hydrogen from the dawn of time. Calcium forged in stellar hearts. The ingredients of galaxies, humming inside you. You smile, maybe softly. Because now you feel it. You are not outside the flow. You are the flow. Dark energy may seem distant, vast, quiet, unknowable. But it is not beyond you. It surrounds you. It threads through the very space between your cells. Your body, too, is expanding. Not in size you can feel. but in the gentle stretching of space that touches every corner of the universe. The same expansion that moves galaxies, moves the distance between electrons. The same silence that drifts between stars, lives between your thoughts. This is not metaphysics. This is physics, gently understood. And yet, it becomes something more. You think now of gravity, once so fierce, so strong, so central. It held you close to the earth. It shaped the arc of your days. It pulled apples from trees and gave rhythm to oceans. But dark energy asks a different question. Not what pulls you in, but what lets you go. It is not force. It is permission. It says, yes, you may drift. Yes, you may expand. Yes, you may become. You feel this in your breath again. Each inhale, a gathering. Each exhale, a letting go. The same pattern echoed in galaxies forming and galaxies fleeing. You close your eyes. Not to sleep, yet. But to see more clearly. You picture yourself, floating above your own life. Not detached, but softly aware. The moments that shaped you, the pain, the joy, the questions, they drift behind you like stardust. Not forgotten. Not erased. Just expanded. Like light stretched by time. Like memories carried gently by distance. You think now of the cosmic web. Of filaments. Of the geometry of nothing. Of ripples in early light. You see how each piece connects. How each pattern, though separate, echoes the others. And you realize. Your mind has mapped a universe tonight. Not with stars, but with understanding. You feel lighter. Not because you know everything. But because you are okay not knowing. Science does not give all answers. It offers better questions. It gives you permission to wonder. To wander. To rest inside mystery. And here, you do. You remember now, time is not only what ticks on clocks. It is what changes you. It is the space between thought and realization. Between seeing and understanding. Between letting go, and floating. You drift, slowly, into stillness. Your body is quiet. Your thoughts are softer. Your questions are not gone, just tucked in. Like stars behind the clouds. Like galaxies behind the veil of light. You feel the pull of gravity less now. You feel the stretch of space more. Your breath, your body, your awareness, all wrapped in one gentle motion. Expansion. Not away from something. But into something. Into acceptance. Into vastness. Into the hum that began before memory and will continue beyond knowing. You are stardust. You are story. You are structure, briefly held by time. And when time lets go, you continue. Maybe as thought. Maybe as warmth. Maybe as quiet. You float now, not because there's nowhere to land, but because the landing itself becomes less important. You rest in questions. You drift in peace. The story, for now, has paused. Not ended. Just quieted. And somewhere beyond this moment, another question begins. But tonight, you stay here. Breathing. Still. Floating gently, in the flow.